Welcome to Best Practices for Hiring and Retaining Recovering Warriors and Caregivers. This module relates benefits of hiring recovering warriors and caregivers, financial and non-financial incentives. I am Susan Prokop, Associate Advocacy Director for Paralyzed Veterans of America. And I want to just briefly review some of the reasons why, although disability compliance is a legal requirement, it's also an asset to your business. Hiring veterans with disabilities and their caregivers can add value to any organization or company. Veterans with disabilities, as well as those who have cared for them, are imbued with the culture of loyalty that they've grown up in the military. They've learned to be flexible to meet any challenge, and hiring these individuals can demonstrate corporate commitment to making a difference in the lives of veterans with disabilities and their caregivers. There was a study done by the Job Accommodation Network and the Department of Labor that revealed 58% of most job accommodations cost only about $500. You can see some of the other findings there displayed on your screen. There's also an enforcement guidance on job accommodations issued by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which clarifies the rights and responsibilities of employers and individuals with disabilities regarding reasonable accommodation and undue hardship. And again, you can find that publication at eeoc.gov. Employers with large federal contracts are expected to comply with certain obligations regarding recruitment and hiring of people with disabilities and veterans. These obligations include outreach to job placement programs, posting vacancies with appropriate agencies, and efforts to reach certain hiring benchmarks for veterans and hiring goals for people with disabilities. The Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs at the Department of Labor offers a variety of resources for federal contractors interested in hiring veterans and people with disabilities. It's good to note that veterans with disabilities can fulfill both Section 503 and VEVRA obligations of contractors. The OFCCP website hosts a vast array of resources which, although they're aimed at federal contractors, could be valuable for most employers. Section 501 is a part of the Rehabilitation Act, and this requires affirmative action and non-discrimination in employment of people with disabilities by federal agencies of the executive branch. Though not specifically for veterans, the Schedule A authority for people with disabilities allows federal agencies to appoint non-competitively eligible veterans and others who have a severe physical, psychological, or intellectual disability. There are a number of other accepted hiring authorities specifically tailored for veterans and veterans with disabilities. Workers with a physical or mental disability that functionally limits their employment may be able to claim business expenses for attendant care at their workplace or other expenses in connection with their workplace that are necessary for them to work. There are also tax credits and deductions for barrier removal by businesses employing people with disabilities. The Disabled Access Credit provides a non-refundable credit for small businesses that incur expenditures for the purpose of providing access to people with disabilities. The Architectural Barrier Removal Tax Deduction encourages businesses of any size to remove architectural and transportation barriers to the mobility of persons with disabilities. Businesses may claim a deduction of up to $15,000 a year for qualified expenses for items that normally must be capitalized. That last Work Opportunity Tax Credit provides a credit of up to $9,600 if the employee is a member of a particular targeted group and meets that group's requirements. Among those targeted populations are veterans with service-connected disabilities and persons referred from state vocational rehabilitation agencies. We're happy to note that the tax credit was just reauthorized retroactively to January 1st of 2014 and will be effective through the remainder of this year for any hires hired during 2014. There are a number of federal programs designed to help companies hire and retain employees, and this slide is something of a smorgasbord identifying some of those programs, along with an additional hiring authority for federal employment and some proposed legislation that, if enacted, would be of particular benefit to caregivers. First are the lifespan respite programs. These programs are projects run by a designated state agency and aging and disability resource centers in cooperation with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration, Community Living Program. They are funded by ACL and HHS, and these lifespan respite programs are intended to implement statewide systems of coordinated community-based respite for family caregivers caring for individuals with special needs of all ages. 30 states and the District of Columbia have received lifespan respite grants from the Administration on Community Living. The Family and Medical Leave Act, many of you are no doubt familiar with, but in 2010, FMLA's military family leave provisions regarding availability of military caregiver leave and qualifying exigency leave were expanded. The Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division has a frequently asked questions page specifically devoted to FMLA issues concerning military caregivers. Now we go on to Veterans Employment Opportunity Act, which pertains to federal employment and is a competitive service appointing authority that can be used by federal agencies when filling permanent competitive service positions. You can find out more about this law at fedshirevets.gov. Going on to proposed legislation that could be of considerable benefit to family caregivers, I will just note that H.R. 5024 in this Congress is the Social Security Caregiver Credit Act that would provide up to 5 years of credit under the Social Security system for caregivers who leave the workforce to attend to a relative with a disability. This legislation is likely to be reintroduced in the 114th Congress, which will be reconvening in early January. The Lifespan Respite Care Reauthorization Act, which is not mentioned on this slide, but is an important piece of legislation because it would renew that Lifespan Respite Care program to which I referred earlier. That will have to be reintroduced in the next session of Congress if more states beyond the 30 that are currently using them are going to be able to take advantage of the Lifespan Respite Care program. The Military and Veteran Caregiver Services Improvement Act, H.R. 4892, would address gaps identified in a recent RAND report in programs and policies designed to support military caregivers and would expand a post-9/11 caregiver program to caregivers of veterans with disabilities acquired prior to September 11, 2001. And as I noted, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit extension was just passed by the House of Representatives yesterday and is expected to be voted on soon by the Senate, and that would extend retroactively to January 1st of this year so that any hires made between January 1 and December 31 of 2014 would be available to have this tax credit used. There are a number of resources available to help employers understand how to provide reasonable accommodations. These are some very good community resources available throughout the country. We've mentioned the Job Accommodation Network a number of times. JAN is an online and telephone resource for information about types of job accommodations and the typical costs of such accommodations. JAN consultants offer one-on-one guidance on workplace accommodations, the ADA, and related legislation. The website there is where you can go to ask online questions or to get phone numbers to call if you want to talk to someone directly. Centers for Independent Living are community-based, cross-disability nonprofit organizations that are designed and operated by people with disabilities. Their services include peer support, information and referral, individual and systems advocacy, and independent living skills training. Locations of local centers can be found on the websites for the National Council on Independent Living or the Independent Living Research University. Federally mandated protection and advocacy systems and client assistance programs provide legally based advocacy services to people with disabilities. Locations and contact information for the CAP program and P&A systems can be found at the website for the National Disability Rights Network. Finally, the Rehabilitation Engineering and Assistive Technology Society of North America, or RESNA, has a Catalyst project that provides assistance to Assistive Technology Act grantees that help them increase awareness, access, and acquisition and advocacy for assistive technology devices and services for consumers of all ages. The project works with 56 statewide AT programs, the 57 protection and advocacy for AT programs around the country, and 36 alternative financing programs for assistive technology. Locate these programs at resnaprojects.org. And one final note I will mention is the ADA centers there on the slide. The ADA National Network is comprised of 10 regional technical assistance centers that offer information, guidance, and training on the Americans with Disabilities Act, and you can find out the location of these centers and their services at adata.org. This concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, you can reach me at 202-416-7707 or at my email, susanp@pva.org.